I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, this is Christina Byron watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about the Trump press conference that he had yesterday and some wild moments and really something that upset people's, I think the thing that caused kind of the most buzz and criticism was when he talked about the Florida amendment that they're trying to do to the Constitution that is similar to Prop 3 in Michigan that passed and is so radical. And Trump had some answers I wasn't too fond of, and he said other things too that I'll touch on. And I also want to address this interview on Piers Morgan's show with George Santos and Anthony Weiner that I didn't get a chance to get to yesterday, but I did tease, so I wanted to talk about it because it does speak to the topic and the issue of, like, are Republicans losing the moral high ground here? And of course, there's so many crazy things that we can point out that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz supports that is just absolutely blatantly evil. But I feel like Republicans are so they're abandoning their core, and they're just not being clear on what is right versus what is wrong, and the compromising just kind of breeds more well, when you compromise it just makes people less likely to support, I would say. So especially when the compromise doesn't make sense, you have to explain your position and fight for your position and where it makes sense. And if your position doesn't make sense, that's where you start kind of folding and stuff and maybe meeting in the middle. But the Florida bill, for example, is it compromises so much, and it's still not enough. It's still not enough for people. So I got a lot of things in my mind, and I started late. I apologize for because I got home a little late. So it kind of threw me off. So I apologize for starting late, but I'm going to try to get through everything that I want to get through today. But before I jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a stream and run my site, all that stuff you guys can support. Thanks. If you're watching on Facebook, you guys can send stars. Watching on YouTube, you guys can do super chats. I do read super chats as long as they're not like weird or gross or something like that. So thank you to those who support that way. If you want to check out any merch at the store, you guys can check out different t-shirts, like my Money My Business shirt here, and all kinds of stuff like this cool Frederick Douglass t-shirt. And what's funny, there's if you compare, I've mentioned this before, but I saw a video, and it's not recent, but someone was going back and forth with Kristen Hawkins about abortion at one of the college campuses she was at, and she said the girl used some dehumanizing language, and Kristen Hawkins said something like, "Oh, you dehumanize people like slavery," something along those lines. And so it's like, "Oh, you compare it to slavery?" And so you hear that so often. And now I'm starting to hear people who are allegedly pro-life get mad when I say, like, people say, well, abortion, it should be a states' rights issue. Trump sent it back to the states. It's a states' rights issue. And I'll say, yeah, like slavery. Oh, how dare you compare? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Guys, use a little bit of logic. Use some logic. So this particular shirt from Frederick Douglass, the quote on here, the Constitution is glorious liberty document, that's from his What to the Slave is the 4th of July. And in that speech, do you know what he did? He made comparisons to slavery. And he was a slave. So kind of seems like is more of the moral authority on the subject than you and I. But he compared the American Revolution to slavery. Now, not saying that they're the same thing, but you have to look at the point that someone is trying to make when they make the comparison. So his thinking, or the point of him bringing it up was, hey, at the time, these people who were betraying their country and going against Britain and stuff, they people looked at them like they were doing something terrible and immoral, and there was, no clout to be gained from it. And they put their lives at risk, and they did something that made a lot of people really upset. But in hindsight, of course they were right. Of course they were right when you look back and at all the injustice that was going on from the king and the colonies so yeah, they were in the right, but at the time people couldn't see it. So his point in bringing it up and making the comparison was that, yeah, slavery is obviously wrong, but people are too close to it to see it, and you need people to have courage and stand up to do the right thing. So the point is that they are the same thing, but his comparison, it made sense. So when people say, now I think comparing abortion and slavery are, the reasons why are much closer to even the comparison he gave, because we're talking about dehumanizing certain people and then denying them human rights based off of descriptive characteristics. So if you can't see the connection and think about it without getting upset, you need to, I don't know, get off the estrogen or something. You got too many feelings. Go see Governor Tim Walz so he can give you a tampon. if you can't just stop and think about it for a moment. People make different comparisons and hypotheticals to test your logic. If I could just briefly give an example, yesterday I was well, I went on a space yesterday to talk about the abortion issue in Florida and some Trump comments and stuff. But then I started talking to some other people online and different comments. And so one woman, she's against abortion and she doesn't personally support it, but she says she loathes telling other women what to do. So I said, would you not tell a woman that it's wrong to molest a child? Would you not do that because you loathe telling them what to do? And so she got really upset. She's like, oh, it's like people are throwing feces on the wall with this kind of commentary. I'm not even like, we're done. I'm not even like, going back and forth with you. And I replied to her. She didn't block me. I think most people who get that angry with that kind of response, I would have expected them to block me, but she didn't block me. So I quickly replied back and said, it's called testing your logic. You said that you loathe telling women what to do. But from your response, it's very clear that you don't think that women ought to be able to abuse children, to infringe on other people, and cause them harm. That's the same reason why people aren't for abortion, because you shouldn't be able to infringe upon other people, particularly children, and cause them harm. And so, especially when you're talking about killing, like that kind of harm, so she's like, okay, I do see your point. And then she asked me, okay, she said, I'm against, hurting children. But I think essentially like, but people have the right to do it. How she phrased was kind of weird, but I think that was kind of her point. She's like, how does my opinion infringe upon you? So then I said, okay, if the states decided that they were going to allow lynching of Asians, that wouldn't personally affect me because I'm not Asian. So I wouldn't personally be in danger, but it would still be wrong of me to not stand up and say, this is wrong. We shouldn't be infringing upon them, and they deserve equal protection. So when I phrased it that way, she's like, okay, I see your point. And then I thanked her for sticking around and actually engaging. Because again, I think most people at that point would have just blocked me if they were that angry. So I was glad I was able to get the point across. And I did also link to her an article I wrote about the societal harm of abortion, because I don't buy the oh, it does, it's not your business, it doesn't affect you. I don't believe that. I think abortion tremendously harms society, and I wrote that article some time ago, but I've expounded upon that since then, because the logic that is necessary for keeping abortion around requires you dehumanizing children in the womb and making them, not persons. So if someone caused harm to me and I were pregnant and I lost my child and they were killed, according to the abortion lobby, no one was killed. No person was killed. So how can I seek justice for my child if they are not a person? So just because you don't want a child doesn't you might want the right to abortion, but your ideology and your thought process is unpersoning a child that I want. So it's a very dangerous ideology. Um, so I just don't think we have politicians that are wise enough to kind of express the issues like this, or similar to this, or better than this. And from what I'm seeing in comments and stuff from people from Florida, they're saying that some of their elected officials seem like they don't really even want to talk about the ballot initiative, because I don't know, maybe they're afraid of backlash, and I don't know if they mean from the voters or if they mean from Trump and MAGA world. Because there's a lot of people in Florida who are gung ho pro Trumpers, and if Trump doesn't want people to really fight for this amendment, maybe other people aren't actually doing their part. So that's really sad for me to think about. But anyway, let's go through this Trump press conference at first. So yesterday, I didn't watch it live. I just pretty much finished watching it before I came on with you guys. But I saw Meghan McCain. She retweeted a post from the press conference, and she's like, Kamala's gonna win, isn't she? And so I'm like, what? And so it was a clip of Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes when he spoke on January 6th, and he was insisting that his crowd size was the largest it had ever been, and his crowd size was larger than Martin Luther King. And he's like, they say he had 1 million, but if you look at the pictures, that it's the same. So I think I had more, but it's okay because I like him. I don't think we don't have to bother with that kind of stuff too much, get hung up on that stuff. But those are the kinds of things that, make it around on the news or on social media and have viral moments and end up in the shade room and Black Twitter and all those places. So I just would prefer if moments like that didn't happen, but whatever. He also did come for Brian Kemp again. And maybe even that was the moment when she said, people were talking about him coming for Brian Kemp again, who's a governor of Georgia, popular governor of Georgia, who won his reelection, double digits, defeated Stacey Abrams, where they poured in a lot of money and celebrity trying to defeat, him, and he won. He has a ground game that Trump needs, and Trump said that, oh, he doesn't like me. You think if you get someone elected, that they'll like you, and Brian Kemp has decided to not resort to any sort of pettiness when Trump called him out in Georgia at a rally, and just wants to focus on winning. So I don't understand the constant need to keep going after Brian Kemp. I don't. And there's a lot of people in the MAGA world, and we already talked about this earlier this week, that are like, no, he should, because Brian Kemp certified the election and wouldn't find him the 10,000 votes, and there's so much fraud and blah, blah, blah. Guys, you need to calm down a bit and think about however you feel. Think about the greater good. Table this stuff. Brian Kemp has reasons to not be too fond of Trump. Like he pressured him and came after him for opening up early. Trump laid a lot of pressure on them. So there's reasons for that animosity to go both ways. But Kemp is, trying to say, let's win. So let's focus on winning. I would really like if Trump Stop that. I would. Um, he talked a lot about. He said he had 3 proposed debates. From my understanding, Kamala has only accepted the ABC debate on the September the 10th, and Trump wants to have one on Fox. She apparently will not do one on Fox. I don't know if she will accept doing more than one debate, to be frank. I think having one all the way in September, being the first one, is too far away. He did very much talk about how the media isn't having any sit downs with her, press conferences. He said she's not smart enough to do a press conference, which clearly they want to hide her. Kamala Harris was asked about doing a press conference, and her team said that they know that she needs to do one, and they're working on getting one before the end of the month. Guys, what day is it? What day is it? It's August the 9th. Yesterday was the 8th, obviously. Saying that you're going to do an interview by the end of the month at this point is really not good enough. It's not good enough. And there was someone from Vox, the news organization Vox. I saw a tweet of theirs, and they're just like, oh, well, why basically it takes a lot of time to get all that stuff together and to really prep. And, I'm like, she's a vice president right now. She's a vice president of the United States of America right now. It's odd that she hasn't had it really any press conferences or anything, especially since she's running to be the president, to take up after Joe, who's clearly not with us. It's why should it take days upon days, hours? I can understand some hours, but not days upon days and hours upon hours in those days to prepare for a sit down interview. She should just be able to rapid fire this stuff because she's lived it. Allegedly, she's the vice president. So how come she can't sit down and have a serious conversation about foreign policy? How come she can't sit down and have a serious conversation about the economy? How come she can't sit down and have a serious conversation about her issues and what she really wants to do? Every time you hear something about, oh, Kamala Harris changed her mind, it's not from her mouth. It's from an aide. It's from an aide. So none of this stuff is making sense. And they know that they're covering for her. And then someone made the point, they were mocking Trump at the time, but they're like, oh, she's obviously, if she's up in the polls, then why would she sit down and do any interviews? And why would she really agree to all these debates and stuff? Because they were, said that because I don't know, they're not too fond of Trump, but Trump did not do any debates, and his reasoning is, I'm up at the polls, why would I ruin that or whatever. Now Trump did go to town halls, Trump did do interviews, and if you guys have been following me for a while, you know that I didn't like that Trump didn't do debates, and I can understand the logic of him not opening himself up to attack, not opening himself up to criticism face to face with someone like DeSantis saying, hey, you locked down the country and you made things really difficult for governors who tried to open. And I can understand people saying like, hey, you Operation Warp Speed, like we got some questions. And I can understand not wanting to put yourself in that position, but that doesn't mean that he shouldn't have for the sake of the voters. And just to get him back in the habit of it too, because he hadn't obviously debated in a long time, to see if he's still like kind of with it as far as like the stamina and reaction and all that stuff to the form of 2016, which I'm not trying to say he's like in a decline like Biden was in a decline. Biden is like gone. But Trump of now isn't the same of the Trump as 2016. He's older now, and life wears you. So for lots of reasons, I think they should have had a real kind of debate process and so on. But the voters didn't hold him accountable to that, but the reason why they didn't feel like they needed to make him do a debate or anything is because they experienced him as president, and they liked what they experienced for the most part. They liked that there was money in their pockets. They felt like they were pretty safe. Like on the world stage, people knew not to screw with us, or they get it. They saw a man who tried his best to keep some promises, and and he delivered some good judges from. He picked names off of a list that the Federalist Society gave him, but he picked judges and justices and so on. And so people were they thought he did a good job, and thought he got screwed. That was a lot of people's reasoning. And they thought someone like DeSantis could wait, and other people could wait, and it wasn't their turn. Yes, they were doing the it's not their turn stuff that people were saying about Hillary at other times and stuff. But it's his last chance, basically. We got to support our guy. And then they're coming at him so hard. We got to support our guy. So people had that kind of reasoning. With Kamala, she was installed. Now, what was interesting though, Donald Trump, I told you guys there was a rumor that Kamala Harris was going to invoke the 25th, and that's why Joe Biden stepped down. Donald Trump also mentioned that rumor. He's like, I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people. This is what they tell me. He's very mad at Obama. He's very mad at Nancy Pelosi, nasty Nancy. And he mentioned. Now, I would love if the press asked Kamala Harris about that. If how they got Joe Biden to drop out. I mean, they'd probably just deny it, but if they got him to drop out, I'd love to see his face. I'd love to see everyone's reaction. Get an analyst to judge their body language or something. if we would even need that. But I would love the question to be asked: did you step aside, or did Biden step aside? Whether they ask her or they ask him, they could ask Kareem, the press secretary. It just needs to be it needs to be asked to as many people as possible, and an answer. I don't expect an answer, not an honest one, but the question needs to be asked: did she threaten to use the 25th Amendment to push Joe Biden out? So I'm glad Trump mentioned that. I don't know where they'll take that story, but I did see it in other headlines. Well, not other headlines, but other stories that was what they kind of dangled. Because if you recall, despite how bad Joe Biden was doing, he still did not want to step aside. Okay? He didn't want to step aside. And his people were still saying, even on the day where he said he was going to drop out, they were still saying he wasn't going to. So there's a reason. It's a big reason. And he didn't announce, I've been diagnosed with dementia. He didn't say that, and he's still sitting there in office. So I'm glad Trump mentioned it, and I hope other people press it. Another thing that Trump said, this was toward the end of the video of the press conference, he mentioned Hillary Clinton, and he mentioned how, he decided for the country to not pursue any kind of prosecution against her. And he said people are saying, lock her up, lock her up. He's like, we won. It's it's okay. Now, some people might say, bro, you were there and they were chanting lock her up and you were into it. He was into it, or into the crowd doing that. I don't remember him chanting it himself. He might have, nodded, walks around the stage nodding a bit. And some of this, I don't know if I've seen him go lock her up, lock her up. I've seen a lot of rallies, been to a lot of rallies. I'm not going to say definitively he's never said the words, but the rally, his thank you rally after he won, he went to Michigan, and I was there. I was in the crowd, and people started chanting "lock her up, lock her up." He's like, no, never mind. It was one thing when we were running, but it's it's over. It's cool, whatever. And then he had that interview on, gosh, I don't know if it was Meet the Press or. I don't think it was Meet the Press. He had an interview, and they were asking him about going after Hillary. He's like, I don't want to hurt her. I don't want to hurt her. And he just dropped it because he thought that was best for the country. But he's like, but they didn't think that with me. I was nice to her. And he said protective of her. He's like, I could have got her on this. I could have got on that. But they came after me. And I think he's, he's got a point. These people didn't want to, It's not just that they went after Trump, all the ways that they went after Trump, but they talk about trying to save democracy and societal norms, but they impeached this man twice after he committed no crimes. The first impeachment is really stupid. Like, I can kind of understand the impeachment after January 6th because everyone's emotions were so heightened. But of course, they did that too quick, didn't have enough time to really, look at different evidence and stuff like that. Like, things that they tried to accuse him on and stuff like weren't even like accurate at the time. So they shouldn't have pushed that through at all. But the first impeachment was wild and crazy and really stupid. But they wanted to get him so bad. And then the 34 count stuff, it Trump had a private matter that was paid for through a private account. And they think that's worth 34 counts of a felony. Other presidents are blowing up children and droning weddings and so on. But Trump is evil and can't be president because he paid for a private matter with a private account, or his lawyer did. You know that sounds stupid, right? I'm sure you guys know that it sounds stupid. And people like, well, he was trying to conceal information during an election. So that's a crime now? Are you crazy? That's not how the campaign finance laws work anyway. If we put the same standards they put on Trump, man, we just wouldn't have politics anymore. We just we'd have to wrap it up. Just close down the country, pack up shop, go somewhere else. Close it down until we figure out what the heck is going on. Anyway, Trump did say something about firearms that he reamed on Kamala. And this is crazy. Let me see if I can find the tweet from really quick. But I can tell you that PolitiFact fact checked Donald Trump. And it was really dumb. Really, really dumb. And what was so dumb about it is that they rated it mostly false, a comment that he made. Now, Donald Trump said that Kamala Harris was going to take our guns or, and they're like, no, that's not true. She only wanted a mandatory buyback of assault weapons. Now, what the heck is an assault weapon? People have all kinds of definitions, right? If they mean something like, a lot of people think that the AR and AR-15, well, they assault rifles or whatever, that's what they want to ban. They think that the AR and AR-15 is assault rifles. And if that's what they have in their minds of what they want, like mass confiscated, that is a common use firearm. And if your reasoning for getting rid of AR-15s is because so many people are killed by rifles or whatever, most mass shootings happen with handguns, right? So if they go after the ARs with that logic, what happens after they get rid of all the ARs or rifles like it? And you still have, some people will still have their ARs and will find a way to get one if they really want to do some damage, but they'll still have their handguns. And mass shootings will still continue on because that's what people generally use for mass shootings. Your logic should take you to the place of, oh, well, we have to get rid of the handguns now, right? So that's why you have to stand on principle and the Constitution, because these people will continue going and going and going. But anyway, PolitiFact rated it as mostly false. Mostly false because of two reasons. Because she said, she was talking about assault rifles, not all guns. And Trump said something in present tense. And according to her campaign, not Kamala Harris, her campaign, because I haven't heard her really talk about these issues. She is not for mandatory buybacks anymore. So they rated it mostly false. Now, my question is, Why is it mostly false instead of mostly true? Why is it mostly false instead of mostly true? Because again, you haven't heard Kamala Harris come out and denounce her former comments, her former ideology. She stood on a debate stage with Joe Biden, and she had said that she would take executive orders on firearms with, if the Congress did not act within the first 100 days. And Joe Biden said you can't just do everything with executive orders. Like, some things you can do on executive orders, but you can't, like the Second Amendment, no. And so she starts laughing, and I've quoted this a lot, brought this up a lot. But she's like, you say no, Joe, but I say yes, we can," and just starts like shaking and laughing and all that stuff. So if that's the Kamala Harris who was running, and this was her campaign in 2020, we need to know, why is she so different today? And we need to hear her denounce that sort of talking. Now, she obviously shouldn't have been invited to be the vice president after that kind of exchange. But the PolitiFact, or is it PolitiFact, it's them. Why are they just covering for her like that? If they wanted to say it wasn't true, why isn't it at least mostly true or partially true? Just straight down the middle true. But it's not false. She said those words. We don't have evidence that she would protect the Second Amendment. We don't. If they would never treat Donald Trump the way that they treat Kamala Harris, and vice versa. So when people say, "Oh, Donald Trump, he's afraid of the fact checkers. He doesn't want the fact checkers," I want you to remember what the fact checkers do. I want you to remember what they do. That's how they treat Republicans. It reminds me, one of the dumbest ones from 2016, and it wasn't political, but it was like, I think it was NBC News, and Donald Trump said that she bleached, Hillary Clinton acid washed her, or bleached her documents or whatever, and they're like, this was a technical digital thing. She didn't acid wash her documents, so we rate this as false. She used bleach bit, bro. Like, the important thing is that she wanted to get rid of the data. That's the important thing here. And you want to rate this false. Okay. All right then. Okay. Anyway, let's watch some of these. I can't find the PolitiFact thing. Maybe I didn't save it. I did screenshot it. I did a TikTok about it. I'll post it on YouTube in the shorts and on Facebook, so you guys know what I'm talking about. But these fact checkers are so delusional and desperate, and it is dangerous, that we don't have an objective now. Everybody has biases, but like, I obviously have a bias, and I can be wrong with stuff. I can get stuff wrong, but in a lot of things I'm just telling you my opinion. But you can see through my worldview that I am trying to be fair. Like, I obviously don't like Kamala Harris, but I have a criticism for Trump. I'm going to criticize him. I'm not paid by anybody. I'm not in it. I wouldn't be a sycophant either way. But I have a bias. I have a conservative worldview. But I'm trying to present things fairly. That's not what this mainstream media does. How they're covering for her, how they're covering for Tim Walz. We talked yesterday about how they're trying to go after JD Vance. And like, well, JD Vance isn't as decorated as what you did. Okay, well, JD Vance isn't going around lying about his service. And they're doing anything they can to try to make this ticket look good. And it's insane. It's insane. And it's not good for our country. is not good for our country at all. Um, Now let's get to there was a snippet of Trump. He was asked about the abortion measure on the amendment in Florida. Now, right now, Florida has a 6-week bill, and the 6-week bill, it was 15, and then DeSantis took it to 6, and people are like, oh, that was too extreme. Now, DeSantis left the exceptions and stuff that was in there. So the exceptions that they have life of the mother, they have like bodily injury, like serious bodily injury. They have in there that there's a fetal defect as well. Rape, they have incest, and they if you are trafficked too. So they have all these exceptions in it. So Kate Cox, that woman from Texas, who her child had trisomy, I think it was 18, and she wanted to have an abortion. She was around 20 weeks. She didn't want to carry out the pregnancy and have to have a C-section, which that's a brutal time to kill the baby at that point in time. I believe her child deserved the dignity of a natural death. And I understand that she wanted to. She didn't want to have another C-section, but abortions, especially that late, don't come without risks. Like if her uterus is that fragile, you have to scrape the uterus and get all the baby out. I don't think the story made a lot of sense. But anyway, in Florida, under their law, even it's a 6-week, she could have gotten abortion there. She could have gotten abortion there under those circumstances. So the Florida law is very, very lax. There's lots of compromises in it right now. The only thing you cannot do is have an elective abortion for any reason past 6 weeks. And so even though there's all these compromises in it already, folks are like, it's too extreme. 6 weeks, 6 weeks. Like I've presented all the like exceptions and stuff that it has before to people, and they still say, well, I think 6 is too extreme. We need to at least have, like 12 or 15. At that point, like, listen to yourselves when you say that. They'll say the woman might not know she's pregnant at that time. Oh, okay. So she just needs more time to decide whether or not she's going to kill her healthy baby, who at that point of time has a heartbeat. The brain's already started to develop and stuff too. You just want the woman to have more time to decide to kill that human being. Why? Why should she have more time to do that? Why should she have more time? And why should the limit be 15? What if the reasons why she wanted it at 15 arise at week, I don't know, 26? Same child, same human being throughout the whole process. So if you think it's a good enough reason for her to have an abortion because her boyfriend broke up with her, and you really want her to be able to do that at 7 weeks, okay, what if her boyfriend doesn't break up with her until after week 16, week 25? You can say, well, she could just give birth by then. She doesn't want the child to live. She doesn't want to wonder about the child being out there somewhere. She doesn't want to take care of her. Her boyfriend's gone. So she just doesn't want it. People think that women wouldn't have an abortion for that kind of reason. Yes, they do. Women have told me, like, they wouldn't consider adoption because they don't want to have to wonder about the child being out there somewhere. Abortion, so much of it is about being liberated from a live child, from a living child, not just about them being in the baby being in their body. When you have conversations about abortion, ask people, if we had technology for artificial womb, because the baby has to come out one way or another. When you have the abortion, the baby comes out, obviously. If we could grow a baby in an artificial womb the entire time, would you be okay with banning abortion? The abortion lobby would not be okay with that, because they still think it should just be a woman's right to do that. And there's already been like papers with people saying we need to establish that women just have the right to do this before we get artificial wombs. So if we are going to make a compromise, if we were going to make a compromise, the compromise needs to be reasons, not weeks. Weeks doesn't make sense. Weeks doesn't make sense. It only makes sense if there's something about the developmental period that suddenly makes it not a baby or not human, okay? And alive. But it's human and alive at conception. The 6 weeks point doesn't actually make any sense anyway. I understand politically why it's 6 weeks, because you get to say it's not really a ban, but it's kind of a ban because most people don't know they're pregnant afterwards. There's like political theater there, but it doesn't really make sense either, okay? But it's 6 weeks right now. So they wanted to move it to it's basically no limitations practically, because you think 6 weeks is too extreme. I need someone to answer me. Why do you think women should have a special right to kill their children? One, but why do you think it's reasonable to say, yeah, they totally need more time to decide that they're going to kill their healthy children? And you can say, well, you don't know if it's healthy. Again, there's exceptions for if there's some kind of fetal anomaly that's in there, some kind of medical issue with you, it's in there. It has so many exceptions, and it's still not enough. It's still not enough. Anyway, there's 2 sections where Trump was asked about this. So I'm going to play both of them. I think I know where they both are in this video. So let's watch. You can't really hear the question.
Would you repeat that question, please? You have to speak up. It's a hard room because it's very big, if you know. So this is worth $18 million. Oh, I see. Yeah. So I think the abortion issue has been very much tempered down, and I've answered, I think, very well in the debate, and it seems to be much less of an issue, especially for those where they have the exceptions, as you know. And I think it's when I look for 52 years, they wanted to bring abortion back to the states. They wanted to get rid of Roe v. Wade, and that's Democrats, Republicans, and independents, and everybody, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back in the states, and I did that. Now the states are voting. And frankly, some of the votes are much more, if you could say, liberal than you would think. Ohio turned out to be, they had a big vote, and it turned out to be a much more liberal standing than people would have thought. Kansas, the same thing. And then you have Texas, and you have other places where it may be different. But the issue has been brought back to the states now. And like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly. I think that that's a very important thing. I think when you have to follow your heart. But when you don't believe in the exceptions, I think it's much tougher. It's a much tougher issue. But about 82% of Republicans do believe in exceptions. I think and a lot of them are changing their mind and coming even further. I think that abortion has become much less of an issue. It's a very small, I think it's actually going to be a very small issue. What I've done is I've done what every Democrat and every Republican wanted to have done, and we brought that issue back to the states. And now the states are voting on it. And frankly, some of the votes are a lot different than people would have thought. But it's the vote of the people is taking care of it. And, when you think about the Democrats are really the radical ones on this, because they're allowed to do abortion on the 8th and 9th month, and even after birth. If you look at your new governor from Minnesota, he's like the governor previous, the former governor. I don't want to get him mixed up because Glenn is doing a good job, and he's leading our whole campaign in Virginia, Glenn Youngkin. But previous to Glenn, the governor, he said the baby will be born. We will put the baby aside, and we will decide with the mother what we're going to do. In other words, whether or not we're going to kill the baby. The Minnesota gentleman, this guy agrees with that. He is the most liberal. Look, between her and him, there's never been anything like this. There's never been a combination. So I'll use the word progressive. You know, they want to go progressive. They don't like the word liberal. I like liberal better. I think it's more appropriate because nobody knows what progressive means. But they now like to use the word progressive. But there's certainly never been anybody so liberal like these two, or even close. I think the abortion issue has been taken down many notches. I don't think it's a big factor anymore, really. And when people hear what I said in the debate, and I think I said it very well during the debate, we brought it back to the states. Everybody wanted it in the states. And very importantly, and you think about this, assuming you have exceptions. If you don't have exceptions, it's a more difficult thing. At the same time, there are people that strongly feel that way, and you have to follow your heart, and you should follow your heart. But that issue is very much subdued. Yeah, thank you.
So a couple of things here. I don't think the issue is really that subdued. At least they're trying it not to be subdued. It's interesting that there are so many compromises here from the right, and specifically from Donald Trump, and forcing the party to like change the platform, and they did force the change of the party platform. They didn't let anybody really read it. They marked the pages so people, if someone did happen to have their phone and took a picture, they knew who leaked it. But they took people's phones and smartwatches and all kinds of different stuff, and stacked the room with different loyalists to make sure that they could force through a platform change that basically makes the Republican Party platform pro-choice. It just does. So even with all that being said, and Donald Trump saying he's not going to do anything with the abortion pill that, I guess kills about 2/3 of all the babies killed in abortion. He says he's not going to touch that, and it's a states' rights issue. Despite all of that, they still keep saying that he wants a national ban. I showed you guys the website, Kamala Harris's website, and I think it was a link that was on a page about Tim Walz, and it went to Project 2025, a website that's dedicated to Trump and Vance, and Project 2025, and they're going to end abortion. So despite all that, they're still lying about this, which I don't understand. I don't understand the logic of it, because who's going to believe them besides people who are going to vote for them anyway. And I think the smarter push on their part would be to just blast his actual opinions and how actually radical they are, to try to depress the evangelical vote. That's what would make sense to me. So I don't even understand the motivation of lying about all this. Other than they're addicted to the lies. Maybe they're just addicted to the lies. Maybe it's like Hunter's stash. I don't know. Now he is wrong about everybody wanted this way. Democrats believe that women have a right to abortion, and they read it somehow in the 14th Amendment with some kind of right to privacy, which never made any sense. And Ginsburg didn't think it made sense, but she still supports a woman's right to choose, and thinks that a woman's right to abortion should be grounded somewhere. They still want women to be able to do that, to have that. So the Democrats, not all Democrats, because the pro-life issue, pro-choice, crosses party lines, and there's definitely pro-choice Republicans, and there are pro-life Democrats, but largely the Democrat Party is very pro-choice, and you're kind of ostracized if you're pro-life. And there's definitely a lot of pro-life, pro-choice Republicans, and more every day. And but as far as it going back to the states, that's not really what the Democrats have pushed, and it's not really what has been recognized in the Republican platform for a long time, which they changed. They wanted a constitutional amendment to recognize the preborn, unborn as being persons and protected under the 14th Amendment. Now, if you read the 14th Amendment, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be read right now that the preborn are entitled to a right to life and equal protection. And if you read the 14th, I don't think I have it pulled up anywhere. Maybe I do, because I was well, off the top of my head, in the first part of it, they talk about born persons and naturalized persons will be under the jurisdiction or whatever. But that section is about U.S. citizenship. And then the next part, it talks about how states cannot make any laws that deprive anyone of life, liberty, property without any kind of due process. And that goes to everybody, not just people who are citizens. So, and it also says everyone's entitled to equal protection. So if someone illegally crossed the border, you can't just murder them and be like, well, they didn't have a right to life anyway. I can do what I want because they're not persons or whatever. No, they're still, they still have rights. They're entitled to equal protection. You can't just, take their life without some kind of due process. So, having some kind of amendment that makes it more obvious, I guess I'm not opposed to that. But really, if you did get it reintroduced to the court and made them answer this question, that could ban abortion right there. So Abolitionists Rising, they hate the Dobbs decision actually because they just sent it back to the states instead of acknowledging that the preborn are persons. And I haven't really heard any good reason to exclude them from being persons either. And I've listened to and I've had a lot of abortion debates. There's no good reason for it, but I don't have time to debate and run through every kind of reason that people might have, but Trump isn't correct. Now, he did promise that he would try to end the debate in the issue. And I think largely he is kind of doing that on the Republican side, but the Democrats aren't going to stop until they basically restore this right for all the women. So they don't see it as a states' rights issue. They see it as a fundamental right for women. So they are much stronger in their convictions than people on the right are. They are. And they I guess they have been. When gay marriage was shot down in 2008, did they just say, oh, that was the will of the people, states' rights, our state decided not to do it? No, they took it all the way to the Supreme Court. And then you had Obergefell, which was not a good decision either. But that made gay marriage legal everywhere. And the reason why they shot that down in California is because there were commercials running that said, if you legalize gay marriage, then they're going to teach you stuff in people's schools. And the pro-gay lobby was like, what? No, that's not true. And, now we're trying to get pornographic books out of kids' classrooms and out of their libraries. It's just wild how far we've come since then. But they are much stronger in their convictions than we are. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. So I want Donald Trump very strongly to at least support this. Now, he keeps saying it's a states' rights issue. They're asking him about the Florida amendment because he's from Florida. He's from Florida. Now I'm going to play the little snippet that followed that. That was, I think it was somewhere around the 50th mark, but I know there's a clip on Twitter that I can probably get to easier. It's just a snippet. It's real quick. Here we go. So he ends up saying that he thinks that this is going to actually pass. And there was a report that came out that 69% supported, the amendment or whatever. But here's another question about this.
Well, I'm going to announce that. I'm going to actually have a press conference on that at some point in the near future, so I don't want to tell you now. But Florida does have a vote coming up on that, and I think probably the vote will go in a little more liberal way than people thought. But I'll be announcing that at the appropriate time. Please.
Yeah, so there's people really mad about it. That's what's circulating really around. And people haven't really been acknowledging the other portion I played for you guys, but that little section of him saying, I'm going to talk about it later. We do a press conference. I think it's going to pass or whatever. I want him so badly to come out strongly for supporting how things are right now, the 6 week. And I think there's a way to do that, to explain the issue, to explain all the exceptions that there are, to explain how developed a baby is, even at 6 weeks, and explain how developed a baby is at like 24 weeks or further when they want to have the abortion, or even 15 weeks where it was before. Just explain the issue to the people straight. Like Donald Trump said, oh, I did very well on the debate stage, but no one acknowledged that abortion takes a life. I don't think you're doing well on this topic at all unless you acknowledge that this is a conflict of rights issue. But if you have an abortion, you are taking someone's life, your child's life. And you can look at the issue from the side of the mother, but for Republicans to have any conversation about this without acknowledging that there is a victim after the process, the so-called medical procedure, is egregious. It's egregious. I don't think he did well on that subject. Maybe he did as well as he did because Joe Biden blew it. He botched it. He brought up like immigration and people getting raped for people across the border. Like he blew that. So it's not, I don't think it's so much that Trump won it, but and Biden lied about Roe v. Wade and other stuff. He didn't do well at all. But I want him to do the right thing so bad. And some people are like, no, even if it is his state, he can't say anything. You're going to be opening the door and it's not wise. And I was on a space last night and someone was like, the pro-life party, the pro-life folks, they should have been changing hearts and minds, and they can't just be mad like the night before the assignment is due that Trump won't come and save the day when they should have been doing their job. And I said, I don't understand. You can say they're not doing their job. Maybe you can say they're not doing things as effectively as they should have been. And they're outspent, they're outnumbered. The sort of propaganda that the pro-choice side puts out is insane, absolutely insane. Like showing like this is what a pregnancy actually looks like at this time at 10 weeks, and it's not even a fetus. It's just like the fetal tissue that's of a sac that's been cleaned up after you sucked it through a tube. Like and they're just trying to say, see, you can't even see the baby anymore. And women who are actually pro-choice who miscarried said, no, you can see a baby visibly with your naked eye at that point in time. Just crazy propaganda that people push out. Just people rejecting biology and all kinds of crazy stuff that we have to combat. And so I mentioned, like, there's Equal Rights Institute, there's Students for Life, there's Live Action, there's Abolitionists Rising. People do street evangelism. People go to marches. They go to college campuses. They debate. People debate this issue all day long on TikTok. Like, people aren't just twiddling their thumbs and doing nothing. But I did point out, I'm like, but Trump has been adversarial to the pro-life community for 2 years now. For 2 years. He's had it out for them ever since the midterms, and really got vocal during the primaries and decided that heartbeat bills were bad. So I'm not surprised that Florida, which I think they should be able to beat it, but not with such weak-kneed leadership. I'm sorry, that just is tanking to the pro-choice side. And I don't know how much of it is because he's personally feels that way, or how much of it is in spite of DeSantis. I don't know, but I want him to do better. And I don't think it's crazy for people to say we need to hold him accountable and hope that he does better, that he does the right thing. I understand he wants to win an election. And one thing I brought up to these people, which they didn't even acknowledge, I told you guys how he brought up Governor Kemp again to attack him. You can say, well, Trump has to do what's best to win the election. Okay, why does he keep attacking a popular governor in Georgia? Why does he keep bringing up 2020? And why is he comparing his crowd sizes to Martin Luther King? There's so many things that Trump does that distracts, that hinder his success. Like, Trump doesn't really have a way to get to past 50% with the electorate. He's too polarizing. Too much has happened, and people have done him wrong. People have lied on him. You guys know that I did a video debunking so many lies that people did about Donald Trump, but he puts puts his foot in his mouth all the time, and he does things that he shouldn't. So if you're asking everyone else to give up their morals and principles on a pretty serious issue. You could at least be the best candidate possible. But then he gives them the petty weird stuff. I'm sorry to use the word weird. That's what the Democrats have been saying, but the petty stuff. There's no reason to keep going at it with Kemp when he wants to help you win, help the country win. So you can't ask everyone else to make the sacrifice and not at least be laser focused on the win yourself. So I want him to fight for the unborn with as much vigor as he fights for other things. And I don't think that's a crazy ask. I don't, because this is a human rights violation. It's a human rights violation. Now, he's absolutely right that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are so extreme, like putting people in jail extreme. Like that's what she did to David Daleiden, who uncovered Planned Parenthood was selling baby body parts. Tim Walz, he took out a portion of the law that about reporting and stuff with babies that survive abortions. And someone reported that they didn't get care or they didn't do like life-saving measures or whatever. So that's the kind of stuff that he's referencing with Tim Walz, which he doesn't explain great, but I mean, I know the details and I know what he's talking about. But Governor Northam is easy to bring up because there's video with him explaining, like, you just make them comfortable once they've survived a botched abortion. There's people who are alive who have survived botched abortions and have all kinds of different health issues. So he's right. He's absolutely right that they're more extreme as far as their max. But I think if your position is 15 weeks or, to even allow the abortion, like if you're like, let's do 15 weeks, you basically allowed just about every abortion to occur. Most people get them early. And you're saying that it's the same baby after 15 weeks, guys, that it was at 6 weeks. They're just a little older, a little more developed. But if you're convincing yourself that there's a moral distinction, we know there's descriptive differences. We know there's developmental differences, sure. But there's not a moral difference here. And you can subjectively view them differently. We all view everyone differently, to be honest, okay? But morally, what's the principal difference between 15 and 6 weeks, guys? So my concern with Trump is that the Republican Party is just moving away from this issue. The platform is now pro-choice. People are saying that folks in Florida elected people aren't really saying much to defeat the bill, defeat the amendment. And I don't know if that's because they fear the voters, and I don't think they probably fear the voters that much. Maybe it's Trump that they fear. I don't know. But I'm concerned about this, how this sort of mentality spills over on people. I am. And people could be mad at me for talking about it. But I'm concerned. I'm concerned. I'm gonna, I know I wanted to play this video, but I'm so out of time. I'm over, and I started late. I'm so over time. But it's not a terribly long segment, so let me try to get through it. I won't interrupt. I'll try not to interrupt and just give my thoughts after they're done speaking, basically. But George Santos and Anthony Weiner, talk about an odd couple, was on Piers Morgan show, and this was a few weeks ago, but I came across it on TikTok, and there's all kinds of conversations like this going on, and Republicans, frankly, don't seem to be making a lot of sense here. They don't. So I'm going to play this segment, and then we're going to comment. I think it's only about maybe 3-4 minutes.
It's about abortion rights. Take a look at this.
And we, who believe in reproductive freedom, will stop Donald Trump's extreme abortion bans because we trust women to make decisions about their own body and not have their government tell them what to do.
I'm so sorry. I already broke my promise. But what bothers me about Republicans is when they talk about women having the right to do things with their body, the easiest rebuttal to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz talking about this stuff is obviously their tyrannical COVID policies and the jab and the mandates. They obviously did not trust women, did not trust anyone to just know what was best for their own body. So this is such a lie, and it kills me. It kills me that so many people want to let them get away with it. It kills me. But it really kills me that Republicans, when they have this wide open door and they don't take it, that is the easiest way. And George doesn't bring that up either, I don't think. But I'm so sorry. Let's go.
How important do you think abortion rights are going to be, and how confusing is the Republican position on this?
Here's the deal. Abortion rights it should be a non-starter. We resolve that with the Dobbs decision. It's a state's right. I don't understand. The Republicans are falling into the Democrat trap of making this election about abortion and deflecting about the issues of the border, deflecting about public safety. When Anthony here says, hold on, let me finish. When Anthony says that Americans just want to get to work and do their job and support their families, how about allowing and creating an environment where Americans can get to work alive? Because in many cases right now, the crime is absolutely rampant. Just yesterday, an 18-year-old
abortion. Answer the man's question.
What's your position? I answered. My position on abortion is irrelevant.
What's Trump's?
Trump's position has been very clear. It's a state's issue. It's a state's issue.
So he's in favor of what it is in New York.
Well, it's a state's issue.
Right. So he's in favor of what it is in New York.
He supports the Constitution. The 10th Amendment supports that the states decide what's best for themselves, and that's a done deal. Stop trying to federalize abortion.
I just want to understand, and maybe you can explain, Piers, because you're close with them.
No, you don't want to understand.
No, I do.
You want to rope Republicans into your abortion talk. We don't have to talk abortion.
All right, Anthony, how important?
It is kind of an issue.
How important?
It's a non-issue.
I just want to understand it. The Republicans' position on abortion has always been that they're pro-life, right? But now they apparently are pro-choice because they say they want to let New York decide, and we decide.
Well,
okay, so what is the position of Donald Trump on the fundamental? I never met a politician, and I know George is not one of these, who doesn't have a position on abortion.
Well, I know his
it's
position.
A fundamental right. Go ahead. What is it?
Well, he's made it clear through briefings to friendly media.
And the Supreme Court appointments that he's made.
He believes that he personally believes in something like a 15-week term limit, right? Which is not unreasonable.
It's not unreasonable.
However, his overarching belief is it should return to the states to make decisions.
Okay, but that's not the overarching. You either believe that a woman has this constitutional right to her own body, or you don't. And the Supreme Court has said there is no such right. One state can decide one thing, another state can decide. And what I'm asking is, what is the position of Donald Trump? Does he really believe in New York's position, which is a very generous abortion law?
He believes it's not generous. It's beyond generous.
That is a trick.
No, he believes
really? In what way? In what way, George?
I mean, come on. Anthony Weiner, in the state of New York, there are no limits to abortion at this point. If you slice it and dice it the way it is.
You believe the federal government should be in that decision?
No, I don't believe the federal government should be in that
decision. So it should only be the woman and her doctor and her church and whatever else.
I'm going to make this very clear. In the state of New York, a woman at the 6th month of gestation is allowed to have an abortion. I was born at the 6th month of gestation. So to say that there's no life, it's just a fetus.
Who should decide?
I think
government.
I think that's a personal decision.
State legislature. You're saying the state, George.
Personal decision between
Donald Trump says it should be the legislature,
but let the legislator decide, which is voted by the people.
Right. Donald Trump believes the legislature should decide whether a woman has a right to choose.
By the people.
Right,
I think that's pretty clear.
I'll tell you what. Let's just bring in.
Okay, that's basically the end of the segment because they go into a different topic. I hate for these words to come out of my mouth, but Anthony Weiner just like dominated that debate, and he made some really good points, and he just killed George here because George he made it an excellent point. He's like, what is the Republican position? Like, they're pro-choice now? Technically, yes. If you're being pro-life is, well, you can say being opposed to abortion, but you believe that the child has a right to life. So when that life begins, you protect that life. Being pro-choice means that you support, you may not like it yourself personally, but you support a woman's right to choose to have an abortion. So if you do believe it's a states' rights issue, aren't you kind of pro-choice? It's not you making this decision, it's the state making the decision, coming together to decide whether she's going to have that right or whatever. But he's like, okay, New York, it's very, he said it was generous. That's how he phrased it with the abortion laws. So if you say it's a states' rights, okay, well, you support New York's right to choose to have a very extreme abortion. Trump supports Minnesota's right to choose to have those very extreme laws that he finds to be detestable. While Anthony's position and the Democrats are going around saying, no, it's a fundamental right for women to have an abortion. How dare they try to limit it from state to state? And Republicans are like, no, it should be state to state. And George tries to say, how dare you say it's not a life? I was born at 6 months. It's not a clump of cells. He's like, okay, what do you think? Well, I think it's a woman's choice, and it should be up to a woman and her doctor and the legislator. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You try to get all upset. And then you use the exact same language of the pro-choice people that it's a personal choice between a woman and a doctor. So people, gosh, ever since Dobbs, people have been sounding more and more and more like pro-choice people. Oh, it's the states' rights, and if they can. I've had to fight quite a bit of Republicans on this issue because they sound just like Democrats. They do. Anyway, I do really gotta go though. My sister is calling me. And we got revival tonight, so I gotta go. I'm sorry for going over. I'm sorry for being late, but I just someone said they dumped the Republican Party. I don't want to be there yet to the dump part, but I'm very upset about all this, and we'll see how the election stuff plays out. But I would like to think that I would like to hope that I don't know. I think whatever Trump might say on this Florida amendment might be kind of like the last sort of pillar to stand on to see where he's going to go with this. But he didn't give a lot of people a lot of hope that it's going to go in a positive direction. And if he really wants abortion to be over and something we don't really talk about, I think he's pushing it toward, between him and the Democrats, we could go the way of Canada, where it's just, it just kind of is what it is. And other places kind of is what it is. And then the Democrats will one day fight to get universal health care, and then everyone will just be paying for people's abortions. And I don't want the country to go that route. And it just makes me so sad. But anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you so much. Please go to blacktnews.com to get different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost to stream and run and all that stuff. You guys can check out different merch on the site as well. And thank you guys again. Thank you to those who were in the comments today. See you guys in the comments. And thank you to those who are watching back later. God bless you guys. And I will see you on Monday.